Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Kelkoo Webinar around the current trends and what the new normal looks like. So in terms of the agenda today, I will actually make a quick introduction in a minute to our panelists that we have. We will also look at the Kelkoo trends that observed between the pre to post-COVID. And then I will actually open the panel discussion around the retail trends and the new normal. Just a little bit about myself. So I'm Cynthia Haywood-Belden, Sales Director at the Kelkoo Group, and I will be hosting the webinar today. A little bit around Kelkoo. So what we've been around in the e-commerce for 20 years. We have actually an international presence in 26 countries with local expertise around 8 offices across the globe. We are a data-driven company serving our consumers, and our clients are retailers, agencies, and affiliate platforms as well. And now I would like to introduce our panelists. So we have from the Kelkoo Group, Paul Lionette.
Hi everyone, I'm Commercial Director at Kelkoo, responsible for UK, Central Europe and Eastern Europe.
Thank you. And from Wiggle, we've got Andrew Mould.
Hi all, yeah, my name is Andrew. I'm Head of Digital Marketing at Wiggle in Chain Reaction Cycles. So we operate in about 20 odd, we go with marketing across about 20 odd countries around the world for 2 brands.
Thank you. And from Awin, we have Joelle Hillman.
Hi guys, I'm Joelle and I'm the client partner at Awin, specialised in retail and travel.
Thank you, Joelle. From the Omnicom Group, we have Guy Tonkin.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. My name's Guy and I'm Managing Partner at Omnicom Media Group UK, our digital division, and I primarily look after our paid search business across the group.
Thanks, Guy.
Thanks.
And from Eminem Direct, we have Phil Twig.
Hi, yeah, I'm Phil, so I am Head of Acquisition at Eminem Direct, so I'm responsible for all of our paid touch points.
Thank you, Phil. All right, so what we're going to look at now is the UK market trends that we have observed through Kelkoo. So what I will now start going through is the overall market, from a volume of traffic perspective, pre-lockdown, during the lockdown, and post-lockdown. So what we've seen actually across all categories is obviously a surge of volume and demand, during the lockdown, but also looking from a year-on-year perspective, we are still above, the curve. So the obvious one, would be the grocery sector. So the grocery sector has surged straight away, actually a little bit before the lockdown was announced, and then has completely shifted online quite a lot during the lockdown. We've all experienced the empty shelf, the non-delivery thing. We've experienced the shortage of a lot of essential items, etc., etc. So that's actually been a big thing. But what is important during that time for those retailers is that it was actually quite difficult for them to sustain that demand. So we've seen, for example, Ocado shutting down their app. We've also seen Waitrose, cutting their advertising spend because their organic sales was strong enough to sustain their growth. And we've seen as well, for example, Sainsbury, dropping their home delivery and actually only focus on the vulnerable group if you had to do that. Otherwise, you had to go to the store, for example. And what we've seen from Waitrose, what they've announced was that their trolley has gone up by 56%. From a consumer perspective, what we've seen is that the frequency wasn't necessarily higher, but the average basket was a lot more. So the demand was really driven by the panic. So there was a lot of panic buying during that time. Another category that also benefited from the lockdown and what we're seeing from a growth perspective was the home and garden, and specifically with the DIY and the home furniture, which I will come back a little bit later. as well on. What we've seen as well is the fashion and the beauty sector that has also gone quite a lot, with the high street shutting down completely from the 23rd of March, and the encouragement of buying non-essential items online. We've also seen an increase of sales for both sectors, which I will also dive into in a few slides. The fitness and sports also, a subcategory, I've seen a huge increase. So the weather was nice also, and people tried to carry on being fit. So the running clothing, the fitness equipment, have also sold quite a lot. So I will also dive into those categories later on as well. The gaming industry has also contributed to the growth that we're seeing on this slide. I guess the boredom at home and also the kids being off school, have contributed a lot to more people, buying online gaming and consoles as well. And again, I will come back to that in more details also. In terms, so if we now dive more into some of the slide here, we've seen the health and beauty really shooting up, during the lockdown with a big surge, and then falling off slightly to meet 2019 volume, from June onwards. In terms of what's happened, and from a consumer behavior perspective, there's been a pivot in terms of the brands that people were buying, and also the type of products. So usually a lot of people buy, the makeup being a strong category was all of a sudden not as strong. But what we've seen is skincare, for example, and the whole idea around the self-care have really, been in the spotlight for those type of the retailers. Also the hair dye that were actually in shortage and no one could actually buy at one point in time was also a big trend. And that trend, you've seen a lot of things on social media where people were changing a hair color just for the sake of it. The hairdressers were closed. People wanted to have something to do at times. So for some reason that really went through the roof. The grooming, the male grooming side also, from beard trimmers to beard dye also went through the roof as well. So that was another subcategory where we've seen a huge rise. And the vitamins were also a big subcategory that contributed as well. So if you think about the overall population, usually 4% buy online when it comes to health and beauty, and during the lockdown, we were up by 8.7% overall, since usually the people go to the store. If we now look at the home and garden, so we actually got fortunate this year, or at least in London anyway, we actually had a really, really good weather from March. And so you can see a big surge, again, a sharp increase, during the lockdown, and that sort of carried on all the way to the in-season for this particular category. And then we started slowing down, but nevertheless, still, again, above the trends from 2019. So there's been a lot of reasons why this has happened. The first one, if we're looking from a subcategory perspective, DIY and any sort of like tools has done very well right from the beginning of the lockdown. People were actually quite motivated to start doing some work in their home during that time, having more time to be at home or working from home. Another categories that we've seen as well is the mail order plants retailers, where we've seen garden centers being closed. So their sales actually have sold by 600% during the 3 months period, because again, shoppers could buy those plants and get that delivered via the Royal Mail in a secured way. The Kingfisher Group has reported like-for-like sales increased by 21% over the period of 90 days during the lockdown as well. So those guys have done really well, you know, during this period. The sports and fitness, I think the theme really is around the keep fit audience. So what we've seen is, you know, a lot of people being the lockdown, being able to only like go out and exercise once a day. I've really taken the opportunity to buy more around the running clothing. So what we've seen is the running accessories and the running clothing has really sold by 268%. And what we've seen as well is, of course, the at-home equipment that you could buy. So anything from you know, yoga mat to Pilates equipment to exercise bike to dumbbells and pull-up bars were the most bought items, but also those ones that sold out really quickly, you know, from April onwards, you know, in there. So for example, one of the leading department stores have seen 315% increase in sales for the yoga and Pilates equipment. And we've seen also in terms of the gym equipment across several retailers that are working with us, more than 400%, you know, increase of sales from exercise bike to dumbbells as well. In terms of the electronic trends, so that one is actually interesting and a bit different from the others. So people started looking at maybe buying a bit more TV. We've seen you know, an increase of on subscription for Now TV and the and Netflix and so on and so forth. The tablets is also you know, one that actually sold a lot. But we've also seen a surge of new medium retailers that started to come on board and sell, and they've done actually really well. But across the market, the electronics have seen also a surge of fraud. So a lot of brand new retailers or startups that are started to sell quite a lot of those things during the lockdown, and actually it was fraudulent you know, activities as well. The gaming consoles, you know, that's a category that are not in season during March to, well, actually March until sort of like Black Friday, but they've done really well and they've been able to capitalize on the demand, you know, to actually have an increase in sales here. We've seen even before the lockdown actually more retailers, you know, in those categories doing, you know, having that push in terms of having more promotion and all that type of things, which actually went out of the window when the demand started to soar. So those game consoles and the consoles were actually at full price during the lockdown. And despite of that, actually, you know, they did sell and got sold out. So if we think of the most such terms, game consoles for kids was one of them. The PS4, you know, seeing 130% increase in search term. The Nintendo Switch around 70%, and those were the two most bought items in that category, and actually that sold out as well. So when we look at fashion, so what you're seeing here is fashion as we've seen it at Kelkoo. So fashion actually brought in a lot of press because we've heard that there was a big decline in fashion. Obviously, the high street, you know, closing down, etc., etc. But what has happened at Kelkoo is we've seen some specific categories doing excellently well, you know, during that time. So our fashion retailers have actually been able as well to benefit from it. So there's been a shift from buying swimwear around March, April, you know, preparing from the holiday, to go down to lockdown clothing. And lockdown clothing is loungewear, the hoodies and the joggers. And we've seen more than 400% increase in customer searches. The other bit as well that has actually helped a lot of fashion retailers is what we call the top halfwear demand. So everyone being on Zoom, we only had to care about how we looked like from the head to half of our body. And that actually has the demand that rose quite a lot, about 167%. from t-shirts to jumpers and smart shirts as well. And the interesting bit, because we do also have premium and luxury brands, we also seen a surge in demand for premium brands compared to high street retailers during the the lockdown. What you can see going post lockdown is the fashion retailer rebounding from it. So we're no longer in a full lockdown. People also have gone on holiday, and some people have gone back to the office. So we've now seen the fashion retailers going back to a better trend. So as a summary, in terms of boom and bust, we've seen the huge customer demand, and I think the spotlight in that story are really the grocery retailers. They are the ones that have capitalized on this right from the beginning. What we've seen as well is the opportunists. So the opportunists, we've seen the electronics and the game console. So not being in season, but being able to, secure massive sales and having sold out products during a time where they wouldn't normally have, that much volume of sales. And we've also seen, the fashion retailers skyrocketing their sales, in categories that usually wouldn't necessarily be in season as well, or not necessarily being the top categories that people would buy. So that closed the summary and the trends that I wanted to, to show you guys. So right now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to open the panel for further discussion. So the first question I will have is, do you think that there is a new normal in retail? And I'm probably going to ask Joelle to start with.
Hey, thank you for that. So I suppose new normal is a very difficult thing to consider right now. And I think everything is new right now. So I think we definitely have a lot of new going on, but I'm not sure we've hit our normal yet, or that we've sorted to plateau or began to find what is our normal now. So I suppose what we've started to look at AWIN in the UK is the sectors that we saw huge growth from during COVID, and it's very similar to what you've mentioned, and then versus the sectors that we saw grow after the high street started to open again. So did some of those stores start to see a decline online because high street presence was available again? And actually we're still seeing the same sort of sectors up versus lockdown to non-lockdown. So white goods still seems to be at the top for us, and second is wine, spirits and tobacco. That was probably one of my favourite stats during the whole pandemic actually. The day the pubs shut, we saw wine, spirits and tobacco sales online go up about 400%, literally on that Friday. So I suppose, what's tricky is we're still managing trends on a daily and weekly basis. And, we had a government announcement yesterday where there's going to be new restrictions in place in the UK from Monday. So we've really not reached that new normal yet. I think what we can get excited about is what is new for us. And I think online, it's the size of the opportunity that's hit us now. So the ONS predicted that, didn't predict, shared some statistics around the growth online. So from 2010, we were around 10% online versus the rest of retail. And in 10 years, we grew 10%. So by the beginning of 2020, we'd hit 20% online, which is an awesome proportion of the whole of retail. And actually, within 6 months in 2020, we hit 30%. So in 6 months, we've accelerated our growth, what has taken us previously 10 years. So that's an amazing opportunity, and it's all very new for us. Not sure how normal it is, but I think a lot of that is here to stay. So consumers who have had to migrate online whilst the high street have been closed, they've now really got used to that behaviour, and they're going to continue to stay online. So we need to make sure that we're really there to incentivise them and to help them to continue that behaviour online and make those behaviours normal for the new consumers that have reached us. I suppose what's also new is the opportunity that online brings. So opportunity to expand into new markets in an online place, or perhaps give your consumers new experiences that we might have to replicate from what was previously in the physical stores. So yeah, a bit hit and miss, a lot of new, maybe not a lot of normal.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's a lot of really good points. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I echo those points as well. I mean, I think for me, it's even though the high street is open back up again, we're still down about, I think, minus 35 to 40% versus last year on the numbers that I saw recently. So even though it's open back up, customers are still a little bit wary about going back to the high street. And I think this has all shown us just how fast things can change. So I think it's about how quickly businesses respond and set themselves up to be a digital first business. Because if you look at pre-COVID, it was probably around things like businesses should become a digital first business soon. I would put that on the to-do list. We'll get to that at some point. But now it's turned into a thing that they must do absolutely immediately. And it shows that you need to be completely fluid due to the speed of change, how things are happening. And those that are responding and being most flexible are going to come out on top. So there's 3 brands that really spring to mind. You've got Deliveroo. During this, I think they're one of the first brands to go with no contact payments. Pret, they had a big campaign around NHS discounts. Brewdog, they switched over their manufacturing lines to produce hand sanitizer. So there's 3 great examples of businesses that turn things around really quickly during COVID to capitalise on the situation.
Absolutely. Any guy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, from what we're seeing with our clients, I think something that Joelle and Andrew both sort of touched on there is this intense sort of scrutiny and direction from consumers that would have been split previously between brick and mortar stores and online. So much of that over the last 6 months has just been directed online. Which has been incredible and really exciting for a lot of our customers, but it's left them, a lot of our clients, but it's left them sort of wondering, how do we capitalize this? How do we catch up on it? How do we take advantage of it? And something that we were seeing a lot pre sort of lockdown was our digital clients focusing on, okay, how can we use data and technology to get better performance out of our marketing and to do a better job, with serving our customers the right products at the right time. Whereas, in the brick and mortar world, they were thinking, how can we build better experiences around our stores? How can we create sort of dedicated experiences for customers who are coming into our shops? Now, as we're starting to ease out of lockdown, it's almost like those 2 things are switched. During the lockdown process, our clients really sort of capitalized on using data to, bid smartly and market it smartly to their customers online, and started thinking, how can we create online experiences that are going to match or mirror what we were trying to sort of do in store now that our stores are closed. And I'm just thinking things like, using VR and stuff like that for a beauty brand, for instance, to help test out makeups and things like that before you're having to buy them, bringing sort of something that happens online happens offline into that world. Whereas from a point of view of bricks and mortars, now that shops are opening up again, it's all about how can we use data that we have in our businesses, smart data, to make sure that those stores are opening up in the right way, and that we can be smarter about who we're targeting to getting to come into these stores, and how we can make them more comfortable by taking a real sort of data-driven approach to getting those people inside.
Right. Total sense. Any further comments?
Yeah, I think the point around the speed of which change has happened that Andrew made there is a really valid one, because potentially this shift was going to change anyway, and I think people were slightly geared up for it, but definitely not ready for the speed of change that we saw. And Joelle's comment around moving another 10 percentage points in 6 months to online has meant that's thrown up some challenges. And I think what we are getting is actually a state of normality, but normality doesn't have any longevity. So, the norm is knowing what to expect, right? We know we have to wear masks in shops now when we're going onto the high street. We know that we've potentially got to queue outside shops that aren't even full. We know that there are extended returns online now, just, kind of make things a bit more acceptable in that space. So I think that the norm now is appreciating the speed with which things are changing and opportunities that present themselves. That's from the you know, kind of the merchant, the retailer perspective, but from the consumer perspective, it's now just getting used to the habits that they formed through necessity. You know, as human beings, we like habit, and the habit was potentially before for some people to always be on the high street, and for others it was always digital. We then moved to a situation where we didn't have a choice, and I think the impact longer term around creating the new norm depends on whether people go back to the habits that they knew when they had freedom of choice, essentially. So for me, I think that there is 100% a new norm. How long it lasts and stays as we know it at the moment is kind of the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, you know, that leads me to the second question, which is quite linked to that. So what initiative have you put in place or plan, you know, to put in place to respond to the new normal? I guess, Phil?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, we're quite, the guys talking about kind of companies being reactive. And for us, because in terms of personnel and within the business were quite small, we were able to be quite reactive quite early on. So a lot of the stuff that we had to overcome initially, when kind of COVID hit, was around warehousing and just capacity. First and foremost, making sure people are safe, of course, but you know, switching the warehouse to a 24/7 operation to be able to then take up that demand. And because we're a pure play retailer anyway, it was kind of like, you know, the stars aligning with all of our competitors suddenly going offline and not being able to transact. So for us, it was a lot of processes off site. But then also sort of entering into the new world, having kind of capitalized on all that demand or extra demand. For us now, it's really about how we retain those customers that we've acquired. And you know, you're talking about kind of improving their journeys. You know, people who are kind of ingrained to going into the high street and now having to go online. So making that journey as seamless as possible and as easy as possible has kind of been one of the big challenges that we've had, because we've grown massively throughout this period, which is great, of course. But yeah, it doesn't mean anything if you can't retain these customers.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Any other comments on this one, guys, that you would like to advise on?
I suppose from an A1 perspective, as a network, it was really about being flexible and really understanding what our clients need during this time, during this period, and how we can adapt to support them. So we've been thinking about how do we help them and support that changing role of the physical stores. So we've been working with some card linking technologies. We work in the travel space, which obviously has been quite severely affected versus some of the other sectors during this time. So we've been trying to build some affinity partnerships between our travel brands and our retail brands to help brands support each other throughout this time. But even different initiatives in terms of the way in which we react with clients. So obviously lunches are a thing of the past right now. We've actually run some virtual events. We've been posting some cheese and wine now and hosting some roundtables. So yeah, just really being flexible and getting creative in terms of the way in which we interact with each other.
Absolutely. Andrew?
Yeah, just to kind of build on what Phil says, so we're a pure play retailer as well, and it was you know, we've been very fortunate in this situation to grow sales and grow customers. You know, as Cynthia said at the start, everyone has wanted to be out and be fit and active. When I'm out on runs, you see sort of 20 times the people that you usually see. It's still crazy the number of people out there. So, and there's no indication that that's going to let up. But obviously, at the start of lockdown, it's all about being fluid, as we mentioned a couple of times now, but it was for us not jumping in with 2 feet, because who knew how long it was going to last for? Because if you set yourself up for a certain operation model and you start to see sales shift, do you respond quickly, or do you just keep that in the back of your mind? Because, you know, if you respond quickly, who knows, it could be another 2 months and it could go back the other way. So it's just about being fluid. But one of the biggest challenges we have was around, as you can imagine, being a global business, was around logistics, and also the commercial guys with the stock side of things, because countries were on lockdown. It was so hard for us to source stock from different countries. And then once we did get it, finding how we could get it out to customers, because some of the airline routes were closed down, it proved a real challenge. So we had to shift quite a lot of things around. And luckily we came out with it really strongly, and the guys did a fantastic job on delivering and meeting the customer needs. So that was great. And I think now about moving forwards, now it looks like that there's no real let up from our side of things. It's for us getting back to basics. So understanding the customers, and we've seen a huge amount of growth from customers that we were a relatively small share beforehand. So younger demographics and older demographics have grown exponentially for us, which is great. And a couple of people mentioned it gives you access to new markets, so that's excellent. But now we need to really understand those customers. Why did they come to us? What were their buying behaviours, and what motivates them to participate in the sports? And then from that, we can start to understand their needs, service it in the right way, and choose a channel approach to actually go about doing that. And it could be, for some companies, it could all be about nailing the research phase, because people aren't willing to go around loads of different high street shops and look in loads of different shops that have products. It may be that you need to own that space. For other companies, it's going to be about owning the end-to-end research through to transaction piece. So it's going to be a different approach for everyone. But I think now it's about, obviously, we've come out of lockdown, people know where the land lies a little bit better, and they can start to make some plans off the back of it.
Totally. Guy, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I'm just thinking from an Omnicom point of view, we're actually quite lucky going into lockdown, because we'd spent the last year sort of previous to that building out our OMG Transact offering, which is sort of a dedicated agency specifically for e-commerce. And what we really wanted to do with that business unit was sort of take a step back and say, look, you know, our agencies have done a great job with, you know, buying and planning sort of performance media for our retail clients. And as part of that, they've particularly, in, you know, for our clients where we look at their analytics and site analytics and stuff like that, they own and understand and work in so much data every single day that can be taken out of that sort of media buying and performance marketing landscape and used to make some really smart decisions all the way up the chain of your business. So through OMG Transact, what we started doing for some of our clients is taking all of that data and knowledge that we've got from a media buying and planning point of view, and applying that to help them make better decisions around sort of, you know, how they run their logistics networks, how they look at their supply chains, how they sort of manage inventory availability across their products. Because a lot of that data you can, and a lot of the directions that can be really valuable for a brand, you can understand from their sort of hit level site analytics data, where they need sort of move their inventory around the country can be apparent from all of that information that we, you know, historically have only just pushed into marketing, and now we're starting to explore moving it up into the wider bits of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes sense. So we actually have a question from Marlene. So is the size of the opportunity observed during the lockdown due to shrink once the furlough scheme ends?
I'll take that one. Thanks for the question. I mean, it's a bit of a crystal ball kind of question, in all honesty. And depending on your level of optimism, I think your answer would probably be very different. You know, the ending of the furlough scheme will put pressure on disposable income with a high number of people across the board. There's no doubt about that. But there are also other cost savings that people are making from working from home, that people haven't necessarily got to commit to travel cards. They haven't got to commit to lunch out each and every day. Now, does that impact offset some of the impact from furlough is really the unknown. So I think, I don't think we'll ever return to the kind of levels pre-lockdown. Will we maintain that high level of during lockdown? I don't know, but I think the proof of the pudding, we'll see what kind of Q4 do we have, because there's a lot of incentives for digital businesses within Q4. It's a key gifting period. The Q4 appear in e-commerce, probably drive 60% of the majority of people's revenue. And I think what Black Friday starts to look like and strategies around Black Friday will probably help us out as to whether we do see the norm and we see that kind of level of activity maintaining. And that will hopefully give us a view on what 2021 will look like. Because as I said at the top of my comment back, it is a little bit of a crystal ball situation at the moment. But, you know, if we apply the data that came out in the last question to that, then hopefully we can make some best guesses as to where to focus, who to talk to, what industries may or may not benefit from this. And I think we've just got to be a little bit open-minded, I think, and not level ourselves with one strategy just in case it goes one way or another.
I think as well as the potential kind of the implications of the furlough scheme, you've also got a potential second wave, or certainly restrictions at the very least that will come into play throughout the winter months as it gets colder. So they're going to negatively impact in some areas, but from an online space, you would think that would have a positive effect as well. So yeah, like Paul says, it's so hard to predict.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, guys. We actually have another question, so we might as well just go through that one too, from Stephen. So how many of your merchant or customers who had an increase in demand but had stock issues because of their producers had producing issues?
I can take that one.
Okay, yeah.
I suppose just from a network perspective, because we work with such a broad variety of merchants, we didn't see a huge amount who had stock issues. There were definitely the odd few. Actually, I suppose however, we did see a difference in the way in which people wanted to interact with their marketing budget during this time, and it was pretty much split down the middle. So we had some brands who really wanted to throw all the budget they could at this opportunity and capitalise while consumers were online, and also capitalise on what they're missing out on from the high street. And there was confidence there in terms of the stock that was available. And then we had a proportion of brands who were nervous about how much they were playing in the space at this time and how much they were marketing to consumers during the pandemic and wanting to make sure that they were really considering the needs of all their customers. I think there was a lot of surveys out throughout the pandemic to customers, and generally they wanted brands to speak up. They wanted information from brands and support throughout the time. So I'm not sure what was right or wrong there, but from a stock perspective, definitely on our AWIN portfolio, we didn't see a huge amount of issues.
Okay, that's interesting. So we actually have another question that is quite similar around the sort of like supply and logistics side of things. So with the growth of new customers, so that comes from Adrian. With the growth of new customers, have you had to change supply routes to fulfill demands for popular products? And the second part of that question is, are you maintaining these supply routes now lockdown has eased in some markets?
So for us, internationally was the main area, so we just had to flip around a few of our logistic partners and just try some new routes to maintain the high service levels and getting products out to customers. As lockdown started to wind down a bit, then we went back to the previous way. So there was a slight shift, but it's back to the same level, just purely so we can maintain the delivery time that we were trying to adhere to. Obviously, things, as you'd expect, shifted a little bit, not just in the UK, but internationally as well, just because of the pandemic going on. But yeah, generally speaking, we were able to adapt really, really quickly to be able to keep those routes to market going well.
That makes sense. Phil? What was
So we had a sort of a problem initially of just not having enough stock quick enough, I suppose, to deal with the demand. So once that was addressed fairly early on, we had to kind of just, again, it's kind of more kind of logistical challenges of being agile enough to change buying habits and buying avenues, I suppose. And so once that was adjusted, we basically changed our buying model to buy more frequently, more stock more frequently, and then coming out of the COVID initial impact, we've kind of maintained those relationships, and more customers. We're now buying more stock and have got more relationships going, because obviously there's quite a few, certainly for, obviously we're fashion led, so there's quite a few fashion brands that have struggled, so we've been able to take on huge amounts of surplus stock.
That makes total sense. Thanks for that. So I think what we're going to do is actually we're going to ask a little question, like a little question, a little survey to our audience. So what we're going to ask is this, so that should pop up. You should have a pop-up that needs to comment, and then if you can just respond to the question, that could be great. So the question is, has the lockdown has brought retailers and customers closer? So let's leave it a little bit of time, and then let's see what is the audience think. All right, I think we're gonna get the results. Let's close this and let's see. Oh, interesting. So 48% think that, that hasn't actually brought retailers and customers closer. So are you guys, surprised by the results, or what's your feedback on that? And what's your own experience as a consumer as well? Okay.
I'm really surprised about that, if I'm honest. I didn't think it was going to be close at all. And again, I can only base this on my personal perspective as not being a retailer. But I think brands have really got closer to the customer. I think there has been a real change in some of the marketing messages that have been very, very supportive of how tough it is, and explanations of how certain brands are getting involved in supporting the NHS as an example, or indeed greener routes, or supporting local businesses. So American Express as an example was a big advocate of making it more accessible as a service to local businesses, as people didn't head into major conurbations as much and tended to look at local for what they would normally do on a larger scale. So I think those brands that have done well and kind of held their hands up and continue to talk to customers in the way that customers wanted to be spoken to have had a real halo effect and got really close to them. I also think that if you are brand loyal, or have an affinity to a brand, and they were able to fulfill all the way through lockdown, and by that I mean kind of get parcels and products and things that you bought to you in efficient and reliable fashion, then you could only see a closeness building. Now that said, I've possibly been quite lucky that I haven't had any of the negative effects, because I would imagine that I think it was 48% there that said no, they haven't come closer. It's possibly down to kind of poor experiences through fulfillment, because that is not going to bring you closer to any brand.
Indeed, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I was expecting more on the yes. So I'm a bit surprised that quite a lot of people still feel that hasn't really made a difference. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Paul. I was expecting to be a bit higher as well. I mean, you've seen companies do different things during lockdown. Some have really leveraged the lockdown and the COVID messaging out there. Others haven't. They've been much more subtle, and I think those brands that have been more subtle have benefited the most, because everyone knows that they're stuck at home, everyone knows the situation, and it's about trying to give the customers what they need in this current situation. So something that we've done, we've seen a surge in people wanting to simply start train from home, so indoor turbo trainers, and the growth in those was exponential. So we've created, we haven't slapped all over site about you're stuck indoors. We've created a section that gives people information about indoor home trainers and the benefits of them, and what they are, and how you do different types of training on there, and just really sold the benefits of those rather than just slamming down the current situation to people. And I think that's given us it's done really well for us in the current situation. So yeah, I was expecting that to be a bit higher, but I mean, that, like Paul says, that's my own personal views, and not everyone adheres to that, and it's all going to be driven by your own behaviours, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for that. I think we can move on to the next question. So, in your opinion, what are the opportunities and challenges in the post-COVID era? Guy, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll start off on that one, because there's one big macro level trend that I'm really interested in, and I think it presents both opportunities and challenges to both the way agency functions, and the clients, many of whom are retailers who we represent, and that is there going to be a long-term change to where people choose to live because of this? We're seeing a lot of think pieces and stuff coming out now, as well as sort of current impact on house prices and stuff, that seems to be suggesting people could in the long term move a little bit away from cities and move slightly more to suburban, slightly more spread out areas. I know a lot of people sort of my sort of age who thought, before a second spike comes, and while I can take advantage of the savings on stamp duty, I want to get rid of my flat in London and just find somewhere with a garden, so that I'm not, trapped for the next 6 months with my kids and no sort of garden space, like if there is a second spike. And I think a lot of people are in this sort of situation, especially if they, are concerned about things like ending the furlough scheme. Is there a way to capitalize on the property, on the value that they've got tied off in their property now, and buy a cheaper sort of place and squirrel some of that money away, for instance? And so that's obviously affecting the way that we are thinking about, for instance, how we staff up our teams. Is it going to be as important for us in the long term that all of our staff can commute to London easily? Like, probably not. Probably we're going to think a little bit more about staffing teams sort of from different parts of the country. Imagine for all of our open roles, if we could just find the best candidate in the whole country, or even in the whole world for it, and not be so concerned with their closeness to our office. I think that presents a great opportunity. And I think where you start to think about challenges is when you think about it from our retailers' point of view. Like, if there are wholesale changes to where people choose to live, that is going to have a big impact not only on how their fulfillment chains work. They're going to have to think about delivering to a lot of different places, and how products move around in space. And it's also going to have to impact how they're thinking about opening and closing stores, what the value of the sort of properties and stores they have in London for their sort of big central London store, for instance. Is that going to be worth as much? Is that going to be as valuable a space in sort of a couple of years' time as it is at the moment, or it was sort of going into lockdown? Those are the things that really sort of, I guess, not keep me up at night because I'm worried about them, or keep me up at night because I'm quite excited to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that makes total sense, actually. Anyone wants to add to that? It's such a comprehensive answer.
I suppose the challenge is, that guy's point is totally sound. I suppose as on the kind of online side of it, and from a digital perspective, it's going to be really interesting to see how companies adapt to the kind of new playing field. I suppose the high street used to be the kind of the place where you would go, and now it's shifting to online, and more companies become digitized and become more digitally savvy, and it's how we adopt to that, or how adapt to that rather, and how we can kind of get the most bang for our buck, I suppose.
Yeah.
I wonder whether some of the opportunity is about building on the experiences, and if there's going to be potentially fewer touch points with customers on the high street, do brands and retailers that have got a bit more of a bricks and mortar heritage, and indeed those that we're now seeing who are pure players potting down bricks and mortar? Does it move towards more flagship style appointment to shop experiences that allow the physical, but then the majority takes place and transactional stuff takes place online? The phrase horrible or well-liked digital transformation is, how do the two work together? And you look at omnichannel experiences that present both. And I think, like last year, I must have sat in a number of panels, and it was all about is the death of the high street, and that was a topic before we knew anything about COVID. Has it killed it? No, it hasn't, but it's definitely impacted it, and the footfall's different. So you have to entice people back. And do we see price reductions kind of going back to being more in-store savings versus online savings, where it has been traditionally when the bulk of transactions have been within store? Does just the complete inverse take place, and that throws up in itself some new opportunities and challenges in itself?
Totally. Thanks for that. So do you think the lockdown actually has changed the way you're dealing with your customers? Andrew, any changes at Wiggle?
Yes, I would say it is. I mean, at the start, it was, everyone's touched on this, but it was the complete unknown. So we were being very cautious with it. And I think, had we done it again, I mean, we don't have to, but had we done it again, we would have probably gone down the same approach, because you just never know where things are going to go. But now it's kind of come to the end of it, and where society's we're starting to get back to more normality. We're still seeing a high amount of a strong level of growth. So we're then going out to our customers. We've actually got a survey going out today to understand what the behaviour of our customers over the last 3, 4, 5 months has been. So why did they shop with us? What attracted them? What are their motivations for participating in sport? All of those type of questions. And then once we get those answers back, that will help devise our strategy moving forwards. Because like I mentioned earlier, the growth level has been driven by segments that you probably argue outside of our core segments, but it presents a huge opportunity. And I've already mentioned in the last question around some subtle changes we've done to marketing to try and just give people the benefits of the products that we're selling, rather than just being really averting in their face about them. Other things that we've done, I think, Paul, you mentioned this about online returns. So we've given free returns in the UK to those on a Wiggle Plus subscription. So that will obviously help during the times when more people are shopping online, and it's also seeing our multi-buyer rates grow. So that will also give a solution to keep the return cost low for those guys if we're offering free returns, and that will hopefully keep a high level of sales in. I mean, but obviously it's different for each retailer, and we're a pure play, so we don't have to consider the mix between bricks and mortar and online. It's pure online for us, so we're in a slightly different situation, and arguably that's probably a bit easier than people who have two store bricks and mortar and online to contend with.
Exactly. And what about Eminem Direct then, Phil?
Sorry, can you ask that question again? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So do you think that the lockdown has changed the way that you are dealing with customers now?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it has. I think for us, we flooded earlier on in the year. So it's not been a great year for us, business-wise. We flooded earlier in the year, and that kind of derailed everything, marketing, logistics for a few days, or actually a week. We were kind of offline, and as a result of that, we were kind of able to kind of test, just talking to our customers, but we couldn't sell to them. We couldn't do anything. We just had to engage with them, keep them updated, and that kind of brought on a lot of love actually from our customers, which was great. Mm. And so kind of testing that had then enabled us to kind of go into the kind of COVID era with a kind of better idea of how we can communicate. And so for a lot of it, certainly early on at least, it was about just engaging and kind of putting marketing and sell to one side, and that's kind of changed our strategy going forward. And so socially, at least now, it's more about engaging with our customers and communicating them, and just in some cases just having a laugh rather than forcing sales down their throat.
Yeah.
Else for that.
Joel, anything that's changed for you guys?
I suppose our customers at AWIN are the clients as opposed to the end consumer. So it's been pretty different. I actually ran a session at ASE, the summit, a couple of months ago on this, just around like the strategies that we had to adapt to make sure that we stayed really close to our customers at that time, and make sure that we still really understand their objectives and how they need our support. Something that I really enjoyed is, so at AWIN, we enforced cameras on for every call, which I think at the beginning, staff perhaps didn't enjoy as much, but I think we really underestimated just the importance of seeing somebody else's face. And I actually think in some relationships with clients, it's brought us closer together because you get to see into their home, you're meeting pets, you're meeting children, you're adapting to really bringing together your home life and your work life at this time. So yeah, for us, it's been quite interesting in terms of the way in which it's adapted as to how we work with our customers, but I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I just want to ditto what Joel was saying there. Obviously, from an Omnicom perspective, our customers are our clients. And what we've really noticed is that when everyone is in the same boat and going through the same sort of thing together, and you are on top of that, getting people to do what are quite important and normally would be very stressful meetings, but, both on our side and the client side, with kids running around in the background, pets running around, it just dissolves this sort of artificial barrier that I think exists between sort of agency and client. And I think when we're doing, our best possible job, we feel like an extension of our clients' teams, and I think that has lockdown has almost helped us sort of like restate that, I think, for a lot of our clients, and we do feel like a lot more like just an extension of the team, hopefully.
Absolutely. I know that full well. My toddlers, singing Peppa Pig on many occasions on my meetings. So yeah, I've experienced it quite well. Okay, cool. All right. So the last one question, I guess that has covered quite a lot of media, press. I'm sure, internally that's also one of the main topic as we are heading towards the high season. So Black Friday. Do you actually think that Black Friday will be different in any way this year? Black Friday 2020. Paul, would you like to start off?
I can do, yeah. And we haven't got much time, and I think everyone will probably want to have a little view on this, so I won't be too long. But I think, the nature of Black Friday is, discount. There will be more people bargain hunting. There's no doubt about that. And then maybe got the economy struggling, so will people start over investing at that period, or over discounting to try and stimulate more this Q4? And there's also it's the two, depending on which hat I wear, it's normally the positive one, but from a positive perspective, we could end up with two Q4s, and in effect we've already seen a level of activity in Q2 that we would see in Black Friday, and a number of clients I speak to say that they've had days that have outperformed Black Friday already within Q2. Now, again, keeping the positive hat on, that just means we're going to see it again. The negative hat would say it's already been and gone, and what we're seeing is Q4 in Q2 and Q2 in Q4. So I think it will be, I've said this twice now, but let's see. I think there will be an impact. There's no doubt about that. You can't have something like this happen and things just be normal so quickly. But I do think that there will be bargains there. Strategies are already in place. If stock's not a problem, fulfillment's not a problem, then people will want the cash flow. So I think in principle it will look relatively similar. But there's bound to be some nuances, and maybe more so from the consumer side than the brand side.
I think for a lot of people, the discounting will be pretty aggressive. Black Friday this year. I think for us, we're kind of going on the positive side that it's going to be pretty big. I mean, yes, we've seen similar kind of levels earlier on in the year, but Black Friday is kind of the catalyst for kind of Christmas trading, certainly for us. And Christmas is still happening unless Boris says otherwise. So you're still going to have people buying presents for the family and various other things. So but we're expecting a fairly strong trading period.
Yeah, I think it as well comes down to what companies have brought. Oh, sorry, Joel. Just around, I think at the back end of last year, there was a little bit of negativity in some press and consumers saying that a lot of the offers weren't particularly strong offers that they were in previous years for Black Friday. So maybe companies were starting to shift over to try and clear out their stock rather than buying actual strong deals to give to customers great deals on the great products. We've been quite fortunate. Commercial guys have worked tirelessly to source some really, really strong deals. So we're not clearing out our stock. It's actually brought for deals for Black Friday. So we think it'll be fairly strong for us. But again, that's just our own view, and who knows what it's going to be for everyone else as well. But yeah, there was definitely a few negative noises towards the back end of last year anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to see a quick survey again that's going to to pop, asking the audience around where they think they're going to shop during the Christmas season. But let's carry on with the you read your answers. Joel, sorry, you want to say something?
I was just going to say that I think discounting is definitely the way forward. So it has been for every Black Friday, but Google released some stats recently that said 1 in 4 consumers are looking to spend less this Q4 compared to previous quarters. So people do still want to shop. They want to buy presents for their family, but they are going to have to spend less. So they're really going to be looking for value more than anything else this quarter. And I think because we've had, like Andrew mentioned, so many strong deals throughout the year that consumers are going to be very mindful as to whether it is a Black Friday worthy deal or whether it's a deal that they've seen previously this year. And then there's a couple of curveballs that seem to be thrown into the mix. So obviously Prime Day got delayed this year, and that's now going to move into the beginning of October, which is creeping quite closely to Black Friday, and I think probably could affect performance there. Walmart in the US are shutting for Thanksgiving. It's usually one of their biggest days. They kick off their sales there. So some retailers are playing really differently in the space. And then also, I just think consumers are going to we're already seeing over the last couple of years that Black Friday period is much wider than a day. It's the week now, and if not longer for most of our retailers. And I can foresee that widening again this year, because we really need to limit the pressure that our retailers have on the production lines and the distribution lines as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to add to it? Oh, is Guy frozen?
Oh, sorry, what was that? Did you ask me a question?
No, I think Guy is
Oh,
frozen.
sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I think he is. Okay, in the meantime, just to wrap it up, we have the results on what we think is going to happen in terms of where we're going to shop. So majority online only. Any surprises there, guys? Or is that the expectation?
No, not a real surprise there, I don't think.
No, me neither. No surprises here. Sorry, guys, you were frozen.
Oh, sorry everyone. I think I went off for a second. Can you hear me all right now?
Yeah, no worries. We're about to wrap up, but do you have a final thought on the last questions around the Black Friday?
Yes, sorry. I was just going to say that because Black Friday really is just always a race to the bottom on price, right, for a lot of our retail clients. And while for clients who have reacted quickly and be able to take advantage of lockdown and move their businesses to a direction that could still be profitable during that time, that presents a big opportunity. But for clients who aren't part of that group, for clients who sort of had to shutter a lot of their businesses and hunker down for the storm of lockdown, a race to the bottom on price for their biggest products, like in Q4 when they need to start getting profitability back into their business, is going to present a pretty sort of tricky thing to navigate. So I know that when we're talking to a lot of clients who are in that sort of slightly more difficult position, a lot of the conversation is around, okay, how can we spread out investment through all of Q4 to try and still take advantage of volume via Black Friday, but maintain high profitability during that whole Q4 period, which is just, those, bottom line profitability numbers are going to be so important for our clients in Q4, not just, total cash flow going through the business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So I think time is up now, so we probably need to wrap up. So I would like to thank the audience, for attending the webinar today, and thank you so much for our panelists as well. So Phil, Guy, Andrew, Joel, thank you so much for your time today. Highly appreciated. And I wish you, Cole, sorry, as well.
I was about to say.
Yeah, I'm going to see you in a minute. So yeah, wish everyone a lovely rest of the afternoon. Okay. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks,
Cheers.
everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.